Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Fintech Combine. I am your host, Kris Kovacs, and this is the series where we talk with and sometimes about community-based institutions and the fintechs that are bringing new digital services to them. On this episode, we're speaking with Lee Farabaugh, the president of Monarch, which helps deliver SaaS applications to new customers. So if you're ready, let's suit up and get out on the field. Lee, welcome to the Fintech Combine. I am super excited to have you today. You are coming from Nashville, is that right?
That is correct. Yes.
Excellent, excellent. So you and I have known each other for a while, but for those who don't know you, why don't you give a little bit about your background and how you came to start Monarch?
Okay. So Monarch is part of Core 10, and that's how it came to be in the very beginning. So I have to go back in my origin story to Core 10 to tell you about Monarch. So Core 10 is a financial services and fintech product company. Started, though, in the services side of the world, and the product piece came on later. And as part of that services offering, we focus on what we call nearshore communities. So those are smaller communities located in the United States where perhaps the opportunity to have high-paying technical jobs isn't as large as it is in larger metros. And so we were focused on these nearshore communities. We were doing software development in these areas. And one of our investors came to us back in 2018 and said, hey, could we use this same nearshore model for SaaS implementation of fintech products? And we said, yeah, I mean, why not? And so we certainly had some fits and starts. You know, we figured some things out. We learned how to do that. But ultimately, we figured out how to apply our nearshore model to helping typically mid-stage SaaS companies accelerate the onboarding of their customers to their platform using our teams. And it grew to such a good business that this summer, my partner, our CEO, and I sat down together and said, this deserves its own business focus. Because most of what Core 10 does is focused on community banks, credit unions, and the fintechs that serve that audience. And what we're doing in the SaaS space, just it's sort of evolved this way, is around private equity, venture capital, investment banking. We're still in financial services, we're just in a different arm. And our team does different things. They're implementation specialists, they're project managers versus being software developers. And so we said, these are really different. And let's give them the attention that they need on their own. Let's create Monarch as its own standalone division within our company. And I have a heart for services business. I have a heart for nearshore communities. And I just said, hey, I want to do this. Can I do this? And he said, yeah, let's do it. So here we are.
So Monarch then is focused on rolling out and implementing new services for the users of SaaS-based services then.
Yes. Typically what happens with our customers is they get to the stage where revenue is really churning and they are closing more deals than they can onboard the customer. And so revenue is starting to get backed up. And they're saying, gosh, if we could just onboard customers faster, we could start charging them, more quickly. How can we accelerate this? And you can bring a team like ours in, train them up. They're already used to this space. They already understand what it means to work directly with customers, to onboard, to customize SaaS platforms. And so they really help bring that revenue forward very quickly. So that's what we do.
Do you see a future where Core 10 helps companies become real, like actually build services and become real, and then ultimately grow until Monarch is helping them do the implementations? It's like a full life cycle support.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that could very, very much happen because that's, on the Core 10 side, the services piece of what Core 10 does is build software products for fintech companies, and help community banks and credit unions put those software products in place. So yeah, for sure.
So between last summer, when you guys had the idea for Monarch, and today, what were some of the challenges you had to overcome to bring the company up?
So I think the biggest challenge, or the area where I had the most concern and like, okay, we got to get this right, is with our team. I wanted to make sure our team understood what we were doing and why we were doing it, and that they saw it as the positive that it is. Because our implementation team, I mean, I'll just be honest. Sometimes we would say, oh, we're Core 10. We serve community banks and credit unions. We build fintech products. And oh, yeah, we do this implementation thing over here. And it was like, no, that doesn't work. So how do we talk about implementation where we're coming in and saying, we're fill in the blank Monarch. We're Monarch. We do SaaS implementation. We are SaaS platform experts. And oh, by the way, we also do this community bank and credit union thing over here. So I was really concerned and wanted to make sure that we did it right with our team, that we shared the why, and that the why was about them, because it really is about helping them build up their careers, progress through the ranks within Monarch, grow their skill set, and then figure out what's the next thing for them. It may not be to stay at Monarch forever. It may be to go on to a project management career. It may be to go to a SaaS services career, somewhere else. It may be to go into fintech, or it may be to stay and manage team members within Monarch. So that, I think, making sure we did that right was extremely important to me. And we've also put in place an ENPS survey so that we can measure. We have a benchmark. We're doing some things with our team. We'll measure it again in a quarter, to see where are we doing well with this and where do we have work to do. And then I would say the second thing, when this was the fun part, the easy part, was going to our customers and explaining, okay, you've known us as Core 10. Now we're Monarch. Here's why, here's what this means for you. But that was a great, fun road show. We went all over the Southeast with boxes of swag and, just had a great time rolling Monarch out to everyone. So, yeah.
So does Core 10 contain Monarch, or does Monarch contain Core 10?
Core 10 contains Monarch.
Contains Monarch.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And so it's like, Core 10 is the corporate entity. And then within that, we have the Core 10 brand, which speaks to community banking, and credit unions. And we have the Monarch brand, which speaks to SaaS expertise.
You gave us a little introduction to the concept of nearshoring, right? And I think that's such a big part of what Core 10 does. And it really is so fabulous. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because part of that, and I don't know if it was part of it, but you helped found something called Newforce.
Yes.
Right. So talk to us about nearshoring and Newforce and some of the amazing work that organization's doing.
Sure. So just to back up and clarify nearshore, that is this idea that there are lots of smart, talented people in the United States who can build high quality software. And many companies think, oh, I have to offshore. I have to do that in order to save cost, or I have to do that in order to get expertise in, X or Y. But what we believe is that the United States is full of smart, talented people who can do this work. And these nearshore communities provide a way to do that at a competitive cost for our customers, and also still provide really great salaries for our team. So that's the basis of nearshore. And then Newforce is a software development boot camp. It's a 6-month boot camp, and it's based off of the boot camp that exists today through Nashville Software School. So at Core 10, we were hiring grads out of Nashville Software School and found that they were just really incredible at what they could do. And that program tends to attract people who are mid-career or have had some sort of career and then decided, I'm going to make a transition into software. And in Nashville, you get a lot of musicians. Interesting that musicians make great software developers. We can talk about that later if you want to. But we had so much success with that program. And together with some trusted friends and partners, we went together to the CEO of Nashville Software School and said, would you do this in West Virginia, which is where our nearshore nexus, really started. And he said, no, my mission is here. But if you can find a nonprofit partner to put this together with you, I will give you the curriculum. And so that was a tremendous gift. And so that's what we did. The community college system of West Virginia stepped up to the plate and said, we can fund this. This is exactly the kind of program that we want to fund. Businesses are looking for grads who can hit the ground running with software. This is in demand. And then we also partnered with Generation West Virginia, which is a nonprofit that seeks to build enriching programs to keep young people in the Mountain State. And so once we got those two together, it was sort of this unstoppable force. And a woman who had been a student at Nashville Software School and then an instructor there, had a heart for Appalachia and said, I want to come be the instructor for New Force in West Virginia. Jordan Castello, she came up and really established the program. And in its first year, actually the first cohort had an 85% job placement rate for graduates, which is just sort of unheard of. Nashville Software School, of course, they did a lot of the legwork and they got everything off the ground, but it took them a while to get to that 85%. And New Force got there in cohort 1. So, ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Getting people into great paying jobs, getting them into a career that they can really grow with. And ultimately, that is, to me, the heart of Hereshore. When we go to these areas, what we are trying to do is not come in and say, oh, we're bringing all this opportunity that didn't exist there before. What we're saying is there was all this great opportunity in this area already. We're just striking a match. And these jobs give people the most important thing anyone can have, which is agency. Now they can make decisions about their lives. I like this job. I want to stay in it. I'm going to use this job as a springboard, whatever that is. And they start doing the things that you do when you feel good about your financial position. They buy houses, they get married, they fund college accounts, they do all those things. And then you have this generational wealth that starts to build and transfer. There are things that today's generation can then pass on to the next generation, and you really build a rising tide that way.
You are an absolutely amazing entrepreneur, because I speak to entrepreneurs and founders all the time, right? But you so eloquently pull together kind of the motivations around, innovation and driving technologies, but doing it in a way that embraces the values you bring back to the people who are doing the work, right? And the communities that you're doing the work in. In the last, I did the math, in the last 8 years, you have started or co-founded 3 different companies and helped start New Force. Where does that come from?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I love new ideas. I love starting things. That is so exciting for me. Now, the flip side of that is that when you are that kind of personality, the part you really have to work on is seeing them through. So that's been like my adult project is finish what you start, right? But also knowing that that's where I'm really good is getting things off the ground and then surrounding myself with great people who know how to keep things running. That's also, I think, an important lesson to learn. Like we can't all be good at everything. So I had to figure out what I was good at and what I needed my partners to be good at. But I just love coming up with new ideas and figuring out how are we going to get this off the ground. But also, I think, kind of going back to what you said before about Hereshore, it's kind of, it can be meaningful if all it does is make money. But if it makes money and it enriches people's lives,
right?
I think that's where it's at. Making money is great. That's a good thing. We all need to do that. But I had a man tell me, it's been several years ago, he said, I hold hands with as many people as possible and together we move forward. And I thought, oh my God, that's it. Like what else is there in life if that's not what you're doing? So I think ultimately all of these businesses are just, they're vehicles for how do we hold hands and move forward? Because you can't do it by yourself. You got to have people helping you. And my ideas aren't all great. Somebody needs to say to me, it's not such a great idea, but let's do this other thing. And so, I mean, I think that's kind of where it all comes from.
You talk about building a team around you that helps you not move on to the next project, but kind of follow through on the ultimate vision, what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
What's your philosophy on building a team? How do you build that passion and share that passion with the team members that are so important to being successful in the long run?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. One of the things I really believe is I should never ask anybody to do anything that I either haven't done or wouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
willing to do. So, for example, in building up a sales team in the past, I felt like, well, I can't hire somebody to do this job if I haven't done it myself. I mean, I got to know
Mm-hmm.
what it feels like to pick up the phone and call somebody and try to sell them this service, and what it feels like when they tell me to go pound sand and, all that. Because otherwise, how am I going to be there for someone when that happens to them? So I think that's really important. And I think it's very easy to hire people that look like you, not necessarily physically, but they have the same
Mm-hmm.
personality. And that makes you feel good, but it doesn't really, I don't think that really furthers you a whole lot. It's been probably the biggest challenge of my adult life, but maybe the biggest learning is to work with people who are not like me, who don't think like me, who hurt my feelings or whatever, that I have to go back and think about, all right, how do I fix myself in this situation,
Mm-hmm.
versus trying to fix them. So I think, building teams that challenge you and question and give you stuff to think about. It's not comfortable, but it's a great way to move things forward.
You have companies that you work as a part of that are product
Mm-hmm.
companies and
Mm-hmm.
service companies, right? What are the
Yes. Yes.
emerging challenges for each of them, and how do they differ?
Oh, yeah. Well, interestingly, at their core, I think that they do a lot of things similarly. And the reason I say that is because at Core 10, we pivoted from being pure services to having a product
Mm-hmm.
and actually having three products. We thought we had one, and then we ended up having three. And the best practices that you utilize in software, whether you're building product for someone else as a service or you're building it for yourself, really are the same. I mean, a solid agile process, very solid procedures that you use, adhering to your ceremonies, like good planning, good communication with customers, road mapping, ability to pivot as change that inevitably will come does come, knowing how to tell somebody bad news up front, not waiting, it never gets better. All of those things are true, no matter whether you're building a product or you're providing a service.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I think the challenges, again, probably are pretty much the same because it's so easy to get ahead of yourself and think we could build this and that and this other thing. And then all of a sudden there's no M in your MVP. It's more like
Mm-hmm.
maximum viable product.
That's
And
a quote right there. There's no M in your MVP. Been there.
I've definitely worked. Yeah, I've worked on some projects where it was like, oh, this is a P. It's not an MVP. And so, yeah, just figuring out how not to get ahead of yourself and really ensuring that the team has time to do things well. Some good planning, being
Mm-hmm.
conservative with your estimates, building, testing well. It's so tempting, and customers do this, and I've done it, to say, oh, it can't be that hard. Let's just put this in there. Let's just throw that in there. And it's typically harder than you think. And by trying to do more than you really have time to do, you just create this kind of ball of yarn that is hard to untangle. So, I mean, I think, being pragmatic and sticking to good process is really important across product and service.
How about operationally? So, how do you, with all of these demands on your time, right? Make time, allocate time, and manage it yourself. And you've got a family and everything on top of that, right? How do
Yeah.
you? How does a leader kind of changing it now. I'm not really talking about operations, guys. I'm really talking about like just time management. How do you manage it all?
Yeah, well, I'm still working on that, but I'll tell you what some of my hacks are. There's a guy named Greg McEwen. He wrote Essentialism, and he has this 1-2-3 method. In fact, my little cheat sheet's right here. So every day, and it's laminated, and it says one essential project aligns with your goals, your passion, your purpose. So I write that down. 2 urgent and essential tasks, serious implications if not done today. And 3 maintenance activities, things that help maintain order and effortless execution. And I write those 3 things down. And then I try to tackle this sheet first. And then if I have time at the end of the day, extra stuff. Or if there's always a fire drill, right? Okay, then something's got to come off this sheet because there's only, so many hours in the day we have to work on things. I also do my best to compartmentalize. Like I work from 8 to 5. And then when the day is done, I put the phone away. I put the email away. I go focus on my family. I go, take my son to soccer or cook dinner or, another thing, I get up in the morning and work out because if I don't get up in the morning and work out, it does not happen. So I just get up at 6 and ride my Peloton. Shout out to Ed for getting me started on the Peloton.
There you go, Ed.
Yep.
Shout out to Ed Brooks, our former CTO and Chief Information Officer. This will be his favorite episode, Lee, because you're in it. There's no doubt in my mind. I think it's interesting, like how the discipline and the exercise of discipline allows you to be flexible.
Yes.
Right. Because you're setting yourself up, the guardrails up for what you enable you to be successful. And with that comes the flexibility to do those things.
That's right.
Whereas if you didn't have it and you ran from fire to fire to fire all the time, right, you wouldn't get half of what you get done.
Yeah. And it's okay to have boundaries, and I've read some of these things where people say, oh, I have this autoresponder, and every time someone emails me, I say, I'm not available to work on this project. If this is really important, email me back in March. And I think must be nice. I don't think that's really feasible, right? But I think you can put reasonable boundaries in place. You can say I'm going to be away this afternoon. The only way you can get me is to call me. So if you really need me, call me. But I'm not going to keep checking my email, checking my phone and distracting myself and burning through this supposedly rest time, doing something fun. I try to do that.
Yeah. I actually, when I found out that you could actually send or set an email to be sent later,
yes,
for me it was a godsend because I'm a night owl. So I'll get online at 9:00 and I'll work till midnight or 1 a.m. sometimes. And I always felt bad because I'd this is when I got my energy. So I'm clocking things through, but I figured out that I can actually set it so that at 9 a.m. all the emails go out about everything that got done.
Yes. And also you're not inadvertently saying to your team, I expect you to answer my email between 9 p.m. and 1 a.m. Right. Because might, even if you don't realize, you might be saying, they'll say, the boss is sending us an email. We better be online so we can answer.
That's exactly right. Because usually when there's an email in the middle of the night, it's not a good thing.
Right. Yes. Nobody wants to wake up at 6 and look at their phone and go, oh no.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Reflecting on your career, what advice would you give young entrepreneurs or founders?
Oh, that's a great question. It's interesting. There's a young man that I talked to the other day who's pursuing a career in songwriting. And I kind of said to him off the cuff, this is a great time to do that. Go pursue your dream because you don't have a wife and kids and a mortgage and all that stuff. It's a great time if you're young and you don't have a lot of responsibilities to just go throw spaghetti and see what sticks, see what really gets you excited. Don't stress about, oh God, am I going to have enough for retirement? Just go enjoy those young years because they don't last. And then you get those responsibilities and then you feel like, oh, I can't do X because what if I can't afford to take care of my family or whatever? So I would say go for it if you aren't sure, if you're young. And then the other thing I tell lots of people who ask me, I say, get into technology, because that's not going anywhere. That's definitely not going anywhere. And I think that knowing how to program a computer or some sort of digital device is going to be table stakes for the next generation. I mean, that's a specialized career for our generation, right? But knowing how to do that is going to be like us knowing how to use Word and Excel. Like everyone's going to know how to do that.
Right.
So, yeah.
You have a very interesting early career, right? So you got to work you worked for Toyota, Delta, Northrop Grumman. What did you want to be when you were a young girl?
So when I was really little, I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to design houses and buildings. And interestingly, I kind of, let that go at some point. I don't remember why really. But I do think that unfortunately, I did not have a lot of confidence in my abilities in math. And I remember thinking like, I can design something that looks beautiful, but I don't know that it would work. And I think that's a shame. I hope that young girls today don't think that, but I did. I thought, oh, I'm really great at artistic things, but I'm not so great at math. Turns out I'm fine at math. I'm just fine at math, but anyway, I didn't think that. But then I kind of changed into wanting to be a graphic designer. And I finished college right when the internet was becoming a thing, late 90s. And so I went out into the world to be a web designer. And so that was when I was at Toyota and Northrop and CDC. Northrop Grumman was a contractor to the CDC. And at Delta, that was what I was doing, was building, designing and building web pages, applications, a lot of front end design. So I think the design piece was kind of how I figured out how to take my artistic inclination and not worry that the structure wouldn't be sound, because I could build it on a computer, versus building it with framing and bricks and all that sort of thing. And I did that for, a number of years, and I really enjoyed it. But there was a point at which I kind of felt like I was solving the same problems over and over again. Like there's only so many different ways you can design a navigation, in a web app, or there's only so many different ways you can sort or filter, or, a table is a table, So I just got a little bored, and I decided that I wanted to know more about business. Here comes math again. I wanted to know more about operating and running a business, and understanding the financials behind the business. And fortunately for me, I have not gotten bored with that. There are an endless number of problems to solve in that, not the same problem over and over again. So that's been really fun for me to make that change.
I think it's interesting that the young lady that wanted to build buildings now builds companies that fill those buildings. Right.
Yeah.
And I would argue that is a considerably more difficult task.
There is math involved. Who knew?
Oh, yes.
Quite a bit of math.
Math and people and everything else that goes along with that.
Yes.
So
that is so true. That is so
that's
true.
amazing. Are there any new projects on the horizon for you that you're excited about, or new things this year that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just super excited about leaning into Monarch. I feel like there's so much opportunity for us in the space. And what Monarch has been to this point is largely a staff augmentation model to these SaaS companies. So they have hired our team to be either a white labeled team or, a pod of people who can do this onboarding work. And it's a great arrangement. It's very stable and we love it. I think there's a lot of opportunity now, even with some of our current clients, to go the referral or even value-added reseller path, starting to do some of these projects on our own paper, finding additional customer areas for our current clients, that there's some markets that they have not explored that we know a lot about. And, that's exciting. So I think, there's so much we can do with Monarch. That's why we felt like it was worth having its own division, its own identity, that there was really, the ceiling was quite high above where we are today. So, yeah.
Is there what's the prototypical company that would make a good customer for Monarch?
Yes. So when I say mid-stage, I mean, it's, somewhere between probably 150 million to 500 million SaaS company. I mean, it's a sizable SaaS company.
That's a good size company. Yep.
It's a good size company. So they already sort of know what they're doing in terms of onboarding new customers, but they are outgrowing their capacity to do so. And so that's why when we come in, it's really turnkey, because the training is fairly short. And we have this great recruiting flywheel in our Hereshore communities. We've got great relationships with universities and community colleges and places like New Force. So we can spin up a team really fast and come in. And because it's not our first rodeo, we can just make a difference in a heartbeat. So, and we're focused primarily on financial services, wealth, private capital markets, but also on banking. And we dabble outside the lines. Sometimes we have some customers that maybe do serve financial services, but they serve other areas as well. And so, we can color outside the lines in those cases.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Congratulations on all your success. You really are tremendous, doing tremendous work. Thank you very much for joining us. If somebody's interested in learning more about Monarch or Core 10, how can they, what's the best way to get engaged with you?
Yeah. So the best first place would be to hit our website. So our full name is Monarch Professional Services Group. So our website is monarchpsg.io. And then Core 10 is core10.io. core10.io. So start with our website. You can get to us through there. We have contact pages and you can schedule meetings, and we'd love to talk to you.
Excellent. Lee, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Kris, for having me. It's great to see you.
You as well.
This podcast is sponsored by Constellation. We're empowering community financial institutions with innovative digital solutions, powered by Fintech, driven by your roadmap. Join us as we navigate the future of digital banking together. For more information on how we can be your partner for digital transformation, visit www.constellation.coop.
What a great episode. Always a pleasure to speak with Lee. If you enjoy this content, please like or subscribe on your platform of choice. Also, if you have a question or comment about this episode, please follow us on LinkedIn. We'd love to chat with you there. Thank you very much for joining us for this episode. We will see you next time.